Hello, and welcome back to Life's a Fixer Upper, part 2 of my introduction. As I told you in part 1, I'm in Bandera, Texas right now, and I'm right here on the river at a campground I'm staying at. And I thought this was such a beautiful spot. I got the Babbling Brook River behind me, and it's going on through town, and I've got to enjoy some all kind of deer and a lot of fish down here. And I just thought it was a good spot to maybe make a video. So I decided to do part 1 and 2 here today. So to start back over, a little reminder, just in case you didn't watch both of them in the right order. My name is Caesar. I'm 57 years young. I travel in my RV named Chappie, and I'm a handyman. I own a company called Just Call Me Jack. And what I do is I try to travel around. This is my life after divorce. And it didn't feel right to me to start all over with another 30-year mortgage and, start dating right away. I wanted to fix myself. And that was why I named my channel Life's a Fixer Upper. But along the way, and you'll see if you watch part 1 first, then you'll see how I'm tying it into part 2. Along the way, I discovered that there's more people out there that need help, and I have the skills, the talent, and the tools to do it. And so, as part of part 2, my channel called Life's a Fixer Upper, I want to share with you and get some advice. As I said in part 1, whenever I travel around, I try to stay about a month, sometimes 2 months in every area I go to. And I'll meet the local real estate agents and property management companies. And I'll do some ads on Craigslist and maybe Facebook or Marketplace, should I say. And I haven't done Angie's List or nothing like that yet. I may try it one day, but right now I just hadn't been sold on the idea of paying all that money for leads, okay? But along the way, I'll stay at different campgrounds, and it kind of started out, I've come down to East Coast in Georgia, then Florida, took a right-hand turn in Florida, went to started out in Destin, Florida, went across, made my way to Fort Walton Beach, Florida, then to Pensacola, Florida, and then I eased into Alabama to a place called Foley, Alabama. And that was a nice area. I really enjoyed that little area. But I was working my way down the East Coast and up the Gulf Coast, as you can tell. Well, while I was in Foley, I stayed at a 55 plus RV community. And as you can see, more and more people, if you know, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But more and more people are living in alternative housing because they can't afford these mortgages with the interest rates the way they are. Some of them are older and on fixed incomes, and they just cannot afford these mortgages and all that. And even me, right? I've been traveling for 3.5 years in my RV. I call my RV Chappie for fun, but I don't want a new 30-year mortgage. I mean, that's crazy to do a 30-year mortgage, in my opinion. So I've been traveling for 3.5 years, learning who I am. And along the way, I've met people, and I was at this 55 plus community, and there were some single women that lived there, and there's single men that live there, and they're all retired. And in most cases, a lot of them they do what they can for each other, but there's certain things they can't do. And so one of the ladies asked me, would I build a lean-to for her golf cart? And I said, yeah, I'll be glad to do that. That's what I do. I travel around and I do handyman work, and that's how I support myself. And so no big deal. Well, I didn't think much about that, to be honest. When I left there, I went on into Texas, and I went into Galveston, Texas, and I enjoyed that a little bit. And instead of going on up the Gulf Coast and through California, I thought I'll just make a right-hand turn into Texas and explore Texas a little while. So I turned right, and I ended up in San Leon, Texas. And I stayed at an older RV park there. And while I was there, my power went out. And so I'm doing the normal inspection, what's going on, checking breakers and stuff like that. And I went outside, and it was the outside RV connection, the park connection, that went bad. someone wired in a 30 amp plug to a 50 amp breaker, and anybody that knows anything about electricity knows that you're not supposed to do that, because a breaker is supposed to be sized to the proper ampage. So if there is an issue, it throws the breaker and it saves from something catching on fire, and so on and so forth. Well, they had done this wrong and it melted the whole thing and I lost power. So I called the office. I let them know what's happening. They send a maintenance man over. He's in his 30s. He's the part maintenance guy. And he lets me know that he's got to make some phone calls that he don't know how to fix electricity. And I told him, I said, well, look, it's 90-something degrees and I don't have AC, power, or nothing. And I got groceries in the fridge. How about y'all buy the parts and let me fix it? This is what I do. And I showed them my credentials. This is what I do. I can do this. And so they gave me permission to do it and they bought the parts. I fixed it, had it fixed in about 45 minutes. Parts cost, I don't know, 90-something dollars. And I fixed it and everybody's happy. And she's like, hey, I owe you a 6-pack of beer for that. And I said, hey, you don't owe me anything. I did it for myself. I got power. Long story short, the next day, I get a knock on the door. It's the office manager, and she says, hey, you interested in making a couple of dollars? And I'm like, well, that's what I do for a living. I'm a handyman. What you got? She says, pretty much it looks like the same situation you had. Will you walk over? So we walked over and it was same exact situation. 30 amp plug, 50 amp breaker, burn up. So I said, you buy the materials, give me $250 and I'll install the materials and get them back up and running today. And she said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then I found out later someone else quoted them $1,400. So either Texas is very expensive, but I wasn't upset. I felt like I gave them a fair price. I don't need a whole lot of money, but I do still have to work and make money for travel expenses and stuff like that. I'm not retired. I don't get Social Security, you know, and I don't have. By the time I was divorced, and between that and the IRS got done, you know, I pretty much hit the road with very little funds, but I got a lot of talent. I'm good with my hands of fixing things. So I made a run for it, right? So 2 or 3 days after I fixed that one, I get a knock on the door again. And same thing. Her name's Christy. She's the part manager, and I won't say any other name. And she says, Caesar, I want to introduce you to Miss Linda if you can help her. She can't afford much. And there's a guy that generally does work for her, but he's too expensive and she really can't afford it. But last night, something happened to her AC unit and she had the fire department out here on top of her RV. And I said, my goodness, I didn't know that happened. And she said, will you walk up here? And I did. And I met an elderly lady. Her name was Miss Linda. Miss Linda, I didn't ask her, but I suppose she's in her late 80s, middle to late 80s. She's on full-time oxygen, and she was a tiny little frail woman sitting in a recliner chair. And her AC went out, and she was worried about it. Now, RV AC is an enclosed system, so there's only so much you can do outside of replacing it. But fortune or luck had it, it was the fan. The blade broke off for whatever reason. I've never seen that happen before. And so I told her, I said, look, I can't find one local, but we'll get one ordered through Amazon, get it here, and I'll have you up and running tomorrow. And so that's what we did. I got her up and running. Well, she insisted on paying me something. And I told her, I said, you just pay, I think the fan blade was $48, $49, $46, 40 something. And I said, you just reimburse me for the blade, I'm good. Well, then she said, well, I got some other stuff I need done. And so, hey, how you doing? Doing all right.
Cool down there.
It is, it is. So like I said, I'm at a RV park and some people was just walking up looking over the river. But anyhow, back to my story. Miss Linda had a list and she was worried because like I said earlier, she's on oxygen. And she said if she lost power, what would she do? And she wanted to know would I install a generator that was remote controlled and have it where it was connected to her home. So if she lost permanent power, she could just hit the remote, crank the generator up and protect herself until permanent power come back. And I told her I would. And she insisted on paying me. And I said, well, you pay me what you can afford, what you think is fair. And she had a list of 8 more things. So it turned out to be 9 things total. So she paid me fairly for the major stuff. And then I insisted that she let me do the little stuff for free. And it was little things like install smoke detectors, a new pull chain for the ceiling fan because she couldn't reach it when she stood up. And a couple of drawers wouldn't come in and out. So I put new guides on them, you know, little things like that. And it made me feel good. So this is why I want to use this part 2 of my introduction of this channel to talk to you folks. I went from San Leon on into San Antonio, Texas, and now I'm in Bandera, Texas. And I chase nice weather is what I try to do. And I'm thinking about going down next week. This is 2026, January. So February the 5th, I'm going to leave here, I think, and I'm going down to Corpus Christi. And I think I'm going to stay down there and just kind of continue to work my way around the Gulf Coast. And I don't know if I'll go towards California or back down towards Florida for the weather. We'll watch the weather. But here's what I need from you guys. I want to help the Miss Lindas out there. I have the time, the skills, the credentials, and the tools and the truck to help these folks. These are elderly grandmas and grandpas out there who are having to live in alternative housing, like RVs, campers and stuff, because of their Social Security is limited and things are so daggum expensive now, rent and all that, that they just can't afford other traditional housing, let's say it that way. But I want to help them because people don't know nothing about maintenance about RVs or roof leaks and things of that nature. And I'm not going to limit myself to just grandmas and grandpas living in RVs and alternative living. My goal is to do the 55 plus communities, the RV communities and senior centers, meet the managers, the owners, and tell them what I do and that I have a channel. And I'm hoping that you folks will donate $1, $5, $10. I'd like to say, donate $500, but I'll never do that. That's the only time I'll ever mention it because I don't think that's fair. But there's enough of us out here that can spare some loose change. We spend $5 for a coffee at Starbucks or somewhere like that, or we spend $4 for a Bud Light at the little nightclub at night. I just feel like maybe we could all chip in $5, $10 at a time, and y'all tell me how to do it because I don't know. Do I start a GoFundMe to help the seniors? Do I do Zelle or Cash App? You guys tell me in the comments section what's the best route to go, how to set this up. Because what I would like to do is continue to do videos on my channel, which you already know, Life's a Fixer Upper, of people that your donations has helped. Now, I've seen some of this on Facebook where lawn care companies or individuals will go around and cut grass for elderly who do have a home, but they're too feeble or don't have the equipment to cut their own lawn, maintain their yards. And I think that's wonderful. But what about maintenance? What about if their roof is leaking? What about if they got an outlet that's not working or the ceiling fan's not working or the AC, I have the credentials, the insurance. I do have insurance. I'm licensed, bonded, insured because I have my company, Just Call Me Jack. And I'd like to do videos on helping people and just showing how, even though right now, all across America, it seems like people are fighting each other for no reason at all, or everybody has their reasons. I, in my travels, have not experienced none of that nonsense. I meet strangers every single day, and we get along great, and we share our stories. And that's the phrase I use. We get to talk about something. I'm like, I got a story for that. And I'll share my story because, I'm 57 years young. I've been through a lot. And if you watch part one, you'll hear a lot of my story. And each video will be a little more in depth of my story. But I'd also want to mix in there every video where I helped the Miss Lindas in the world who didn't have a grandson or a son to come and help them. So if you guys are interested, I'd like to see in the comments. I'm going to tell you, like and subscribe to my channel. And if you would share my channel, hit the share and send it to other people that you think may be interested in what I'm trying to do. Maybe I can team up with some people if we're in the same areas, because I'll always tell where I'm at. Like I said, for example, if nothing changes, come February the 5th, I'm headed down to Corpus Christi, Texas. And so if nothing changes, maybe we can meet up and share some stories, or y'all can teach me how to do this the right way. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Thank you for listening to me. And you know, my intent for these videos is to have a conversation with people and help people. I'm not gonna start a channel just so people hoping somebody sit there and listen to what I gotta say, because I'm not that fascinating. But I believe we can have conversations about some fascinating things, and we can do some fascinating things to help others who really need our help. And who knows, maybe one day somebody will help us. So until next time, thank you for joining me on Life's a Fixer Upper, and we'll talk soon.